This is Jim from RV Metal, and I'd just like to take you through the installation of the quick attach front hitch for your loader. I'm not going to go through every single step because it's all detailed in the manual. I'm just going to give you all the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. So I've taken the bucket on and off the tractor so many times now, probably over 100 times. So I've learned a few things on making it easier. So I'm going to graduate from being the Karate Kid with the bucket on, bucket off all the time, and I'll try to give you the Mr. Miyagi side of the story. So the easiest way to do this, rather than working here on the ground trying to get all your pins and everything off, is to get the bucket up in the air. So what I'm going to do is bring in one of my workshop tables. It doesn't really matter what you've got, whatever you've got that's sturdy enough to support the bucket while you take it off. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll bring the table in. Now we've got our bucket up on our table, first thing we need to do is remove the hydraulic lines. Obviously if you've got a standard bucket you won't have these two. So go ahead and remove those, get those out of the way, and put your little caps on. Same again on your tractor. Now we need to take the three pins out, the two lower pins and the upper pin. I've already undone the nuts, so the first one we take out is the upper pin. And this is the same on all the models. You remove the bolt. When you get this pin out, you'll need to put a drift through it. So if you haven't got a drift like that, it's quite okay to use a socket extension. These will need quite a bit of tapping to get them out. So you'll notice also one side, this side is got the grease nipple. Don't go banging on the grease nipple side, you bang on the flat side. So now that's removed, you'll probably notice there's no grease on this. I've already pre-removed all the grease for the purposes of this demonstration. The drift is now sitting in the centre here. So one good tip is, when we remove this drift, this ram is going to want to swing right down. So what I do is just put a wood block in underneath the ram, take my drift out, and then I can support that on the loader arms. Before we remove the lower pins, what we need to do is secure the stand, the kickstand for the loader. When you take your lower pins out, this can swing down very violently. It'll swing down this way and then come flying back at you, and it's really difficult to get it back installed if it's all swung down. So what we're going to do, just grab a couple of cable ties and secure it so that it can't swing down. So just putting a couple of cable ties together. Put some around the arm on this side. Secure that. Just for good measure, we'll put one around the back here so it can't swing down. And finally a couple on the arm on the other side. So that's stopping all this stand coming down. We've stopped the ram falling out with our block of wood, so we're right to take out the lower pins. So on the 80 series we've got the pins coming out from the outside. You remove the two nuts, or the single nut, and pull the pin through. You may need, again, put a drift on this. I've had these out previously, so there's no grease again on these pins. Taking off the bolt, and I've undone these before I took this video. Needs a bit of wiggling and jiggling. This one will actually allow me to put a drift on it. Okay, so it's a bit of a wiggle to get these pins out around the hydraulic ram on the 4-in-1 bucket. So I'll just move the bucket out from the tractor and I'll show you what I'm talking about and give you a few tips on how I do that. So I've just put the pin back in the bucket to demonstrate. When we take the retaining bolt out and start to remove the pin, you'll find that the pin whacks against the hydraulic cylinder. So to get it out, you need to just rotate it slightly and pass it between the cylinder and the hydraulic line, and it will come out quite easily. If it's in any other position, it's going to hit the cylinder, the lines, or the fitting. So if you just do that, it'll come out quite easily, and you don't need to remove the hydraulic lines or the cylinder. Now we've got the bucket off, it's a really good opportunity to clean up all your pins, remove all the grease. I've already done all of that. The next thing we want to do is, depending on the position of your bucket that was on the bench, is how far out this ram is. So we want to just move this wood block upwards a bit and retract your ram. Next thing we need to do is offer up the quick hitch. And the easiest way I've found to do that is to grab a stand, and it doesn't really matter what you have. It can be another workbench or a step ladder, as I've done in this case. So we put the hitch on that, and then we can align it to the tractor fairly easily. So now we've got the hitch offered up to the loader arms. It's a good idea to have the loader arms slightly higher than your pins, so it makes it easier to align your pins. Now starting on this side, we'll put the pin partially through, and because this is the 80 series with the spill guard, the spill guard needs to engage with the back of the quick hitch. So I'll get that done and aligned up, pop my pin partially through, and this is just going to give me some wiggle room to align the second pin. So we pop the pin in on this side and reconnect the brackets for our stand. Add the circlip and the outside nut. So the arrangement's slightly different with the earlier models, being that you bolt the pin on from the inside here, and the kickstand is slightly different. So coming back to this side, we just need to jiggle this through and lining up all the pieces for the stand. And popping our pin through. Now when this is new, you may need to tap these pins in just to relieve some of the powder coat. The powder coat makes this reasonably tight in the beginning, and that'll loosen up as you use the quick hitch. Now we're ready to put the hydraulic ram onto the quick hitch. So first thing to do is just put your pin into the hitch a little bit to hold it there. Remove your wood block, lower your ram down into position. And then, because we shortened the ram up before, we can just roll the hitch back until they align and pop in our pin. Now, you'll probably need to hammer the pin through. This is well worn, this pin, so I didn't need to do that. Drop in your bolt, which can take a little bit to align. And tighten up your bolt. Okay, so at this point, we've got the quick hitch installed, and we're going to remove the ladder. So now we need to check that everything's installed correctly. We need to check that the hitch is going through the full range of movement, and it's not getting hooked up on these positions here on the side. If it is, and it's a common thing for the buckets on these bottles, that they're allowed to walk side to side a little bit. So we supply a bunch of shims in the kit, and you can position the shims and add them so that it doesn't rub on this plate here or rub on this plate here. So if you need to do that, check that out now, and go back and reinstall your lower pins with the shims if you need to. So the next thing we're going to do is check the operation of the kickstand. So we need to remove the cable ties that we installed previously so that the kickstand can come down. And I'll just jump on and take the kickstand down. So there's our kickstand down, and then we're going to start the tractor and check that it rolls up into its normal position. The last thing to do is, if you've got the bucket level indicator rod that fits up here, I don't have the kit on my tractor at the moment, is to go ahead now and fit that on here and check out that it's operating as per the manual. Finally, we need to adjust the spill guard. Go to your workshop manual, it's also in the instruction book on how to do that. So now we've got the hitch installed on the tractor, we need to prepare our bucket and install the 3 pins into the bucket that will make the receiver. So I'm using the pins that we've got in our web store, and a simple procedure of popping them in and doing up the bolts. Now, these pins are not greasable, they're not required to be greasable on your bucket, as the bucket doesn't pivot. Second pin. Okay, so now we've got all the bolts tightened up, we're ready to put the bucket onto the quick hitch for the first time. Now notice that I supplied this bucket bolt a little bit longer than needed for the 4-in-1 bucket. It's a bit longer because some of the spacers on third-party buckets are quite a bit bigger, and you just cut that down to the size as you require. Now we've got the bucket relatively close to the hitch receiver. I've tilted the quick hitch forward as we described in the other video, and that's more a function of this bucket being tilted back. So we need to engage this section here with the centre pin So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we've picked up our bucket and I've curled it back, it's pushing into our lower pins. So now we put our locking pins in place. The first few times you do this, it may take a little bit to get them in because of the powder coat. And drop our pins in place and install the R-clips. And you can install a third spare pin in the hitch receiver just to keep it in the, just to keep a spare there in case you lose one in the field. So now we need to take our table away and we can lower our bucket to the ground. So that's our quick attach front hitch installed on the tractor, our bucket reinstalled on the hitch. In our next video, I'm going to be taking you through removing the bucket and installing a different attachment, in this case our sprayer, and then swapping back. So thank you for your time. If you'd like to subscribe to our videos, press the button down here. Thank you very much.